You can build rockets to Mars, but not a way back to yourself. That one line was all it said. No name. No greeting. No explanation. Just that. And it was enough to stop the world's busiest man in his tracks. Elon Musk was sitting alone in the sky lounge of his cliffside home in Big Sur, an architectural marvel suspended over the Pacific Ocean. The walls were glass. The floor was engineered stone. And the silence was perfectly curated by an AI he designed himself. That silence was supposed to feel peaceful. Instead, it felt vacant. His assistant had just left after briefing him on tomorrow's calls with NASA, a resupply update from SpaceX engineers, and new AI regulations the White House wanted his thoughts on. Tesla stock was up. Twitter was stable for once. Neuralink had just cleared its next ethical review board. By all accounts, life was good. Full. Controlled. But that message. He reread it. You can build rockets to Mars, but not a way back to yourself. There was something about it that felt too intentional. It wasn't praise. It wasn't hate mail. It wasn't some poetic fan trying to get attention. No one even knew this email address existed. It was a private line he used only for encrypted exchanges with his most trusted circle, and even they didn't know the server location. And yet, there it was. Attached was a file. A map. It wasn't digital. It was a scanned copy of an old hand-drawn trail with faded markings, cryptic labels like where it began and no signals here, and at the top, a single phrase. To find the thing you lost, come without what you've built. He stared at it. A logical man would have deleted it. Flagged it. Investigated the sender. Elon Musk wasn't always logical. Not when it came to wonder. He stood up, slowly, as if his body already knew something his mind was trying to catch up to. Zeta, he said into the quiet. Yes, Mr. Musk, the voice answered smoothly. Prep the Cybertruck. I'm going alone. Coordinates, sir? He uploaded the trail image to the onboard system. It took the AI 2 minutes to match the hand-sketched map to a remote region of British Columbia, somewhere along an abandoned postal route near the old Yukon border. A place with no cell towers. No roads on Google Maps. No record of inhabitants since 1973. Zeta responded, almost hesitant. Warning, this destination has no digital infrastructure. Estimated time to arrival, 9 hours. Would you like to notify security? Elon's eyes were fixed on the Pacific horizon. For the first time in a long while, he felt something move inside his chest. Not anxiety. Not excitement. Longing. No. No security. No notifications. Just pack the basics and the journal. Yes, Mr. Musk. He drove through the night, the Cybertruck humming steadily beneath him. The sky turned from gold to black to the gray-purple of early dawn. As the road twisted into the wild, his phone lost signal. Then the dashboard lost data. Then even Zeta went silent. All that remained was the sound of gravel beneath tires and the distant, rhythmic tapping of rain against metal. He stopped once, to step out and feel the cold air on his face. It smelled like pine and something older, something untouched. When was the last time he'd breathed air not recycled through climate-controlled systems? He didn't remember. The trail ended without warning. The truck could go no farther. So he walked. 4 hours. He passed a broken wooden fence. A field overgrown with wildflowers. A stone wall crumbling into the earth. And finally, just as his legs began to give in, a cabin, weathered but standing. It had no electricity. No code lock. Just a wooden door, slightly ajar, and a faded sign carved into the frame. You're not here to solve. You're here to see. He stepped inside. Dust. Old wood. The scent of moss and soot. There was a chair. A fireplace. A small wooden table with a single object placed at its center, a brass compass. And under it, a note. Handwritten. Elegant. Familiar. You've led the world outward. Now see where it turns when you stop leading. Elon sat down, his breath slow. He should have been afraid. Instead, he felt more grounded than he had in years. He stayed in that cabin for 2 days. No connection. No updates. He read old books that lined the shelf, tales of simplicity, of craftsmanship, of forgotten philosophies. He cooked what little food there was. And he started writing again. Not strategy decks. Not problem-solution matrices. Journaling. Just thoughts. Feelings. Questions. It was on the third morning that he met him. A boy, maybe 12 or 13, stood at the edge of the field with a paper kite and a serious look on his face. "You're Elon Musk," the boy said plainly. Elon froze. "How do you know that?" "My uncle has one of your rockets on a poster in his garage. He says you built the future." Elon gave a half smile. "And what do you think?" The boy shrugged. "I think people don't fly kites anymore." "That stung more than it should have." "I used to," Elon replied, his voice quieter than he meant. The boy turned back toward the open field. "Then maybe you forgot how to fly one, too." And with that, he ran off, kite in hand, trailing behind him like a memory just out of reach. That night, under a sky littered with stars, Elon lay awake in a creaky bed and listened. No buzz. No updates. No applause. Only the slow, honest rhythm of stillness. He realized something. He had spent his whole life chasing problems no one else dared solve. He had built answers for a world addicted to movement, speed, and optimization. But maybe, just maybe, the one thing that couldn't be engineered was peace. He whispered into the darkness. "I don't know what I'm looking for." And in the silence, it almost felt like the night answered. That's how you'll know when you've found it. Part 2, The Fixer with No Name. The fourth morning, just after the mist burned off the valley, Elon found a path behind the cabin, a narrow dirt trail marked with nothing but a circle etched into a tree trunk. Curious and restless, he followed it. The trail led to a clearing, and in that clearing stood a structure half shed, half workshop. Smoke curled from a crooked chimney. Tools hung neatly along the wall, and beside a weathered wooden bench sat a woman in a faded green coat, soldering what looked like a broken wind-up clock. She didn't look up. "Took you long enough," she muttered. Elon blinked. "I didn't know I was coming." "That's what they all say," she said, still focused on her work. "Then they show up right on time." He stepped closer. "You know who I am?" "I know what you are," she replied, finally glancing up. Her eyes were pale gray and steady, like fog that refused to lift. "But out here, no one gets extra points for being recognized." There was a long pause. Then she said simply, "You can call me Kiva." "Kiva," Elon repeated. "You live out here?" She smiled. "I fix things people forget how to fix." "Like clocks?" "Like people." Kiva didn't ask him to help. But Elon, compelled by a muscle memory of usefulness, pointed to the broken table in the corner. "Legs uneven," he said. "Looks like the joint's warped." She nodded once, and without a word, handed him a toolkit. No instructions. No approval forms. No digital diagnostics. Just trust. He spent 2 hours adjusting the balance, resetting the screws, reinforcing the base. It wasn't about speed. There were no deadlines. No global impact. And yet when it finally stood still, without a wobble, Elon felt something shift inside him. A quiet kind of satisfaction. A pride not based in innovation, but in care. "Good," Kiva said softly, watching. "Not because it's perfect. Because you gave it your attention." Later that afternoon, as he wandered back through the trail, he passed a girl, barely 10, kneeling beside a stream, folding pieces of paper into tiny cranes. She didn't speak. just looked up and smiled like she'd known him forever. Then she held one out. "For you," she said. He hesitated. "Why?" "Because sometimes the people who seem the strongest are the ones who forget they're allowed to receive." Her words hit him like thunder behind closed eyes. He took the crane gently. It was fragile, imperfect, a little wet, and it was the first gift he'd accepted in years without trying to earn it. "Thanks," he whispered. She shrugged. "You looked like someone who needed reminding." And just like that, she skipped away. That night, he returned to the main village, if it could be called that. A collection of homes. A bakery with its windows fogged up. A reading hall where a group of elders played cards with no scoreboard. A small hut with a wooden sign, "Gatherings. No phones allowed." He passed by the cafe again. This time, they remembered his name, but not his fame. A man in a flannel shirt waved him over. "Join us," the man said. "We're talking about nothing that matters, but everything that does." So Elon sat. They talked about the weather, about berry crops, about how the lake had frozen late this year. They talked about a fox someone saw last Tuesday. They talked about a book someone never finished. And nobody asked him about rockets. Nobody cared about market caps. Nobody wanted his opinion on AI. They just wanted his company. And for reasons he couldn't explain, that meant more than all the headlines in the world. Back at the cabin, beneath a sky pulsing with stars, Elon opened his leather journal. But tonight, he didn't write about the village. He didn't write about the fixer or the girl or the table. He wrote about his mother. About a story she once told him when he was 8, about a time she failed a math test and cried for 2 days, until her father told her, "You are not your mistakes. You are the way you get up after them." He'd forgotten that. He'd forgotten a lot of things. So he wrote a letter. Not to the world. Not for Twitter. Just for himself. He began. "To the man I've been pretending to be. I see now you weren't the problem. You were the protection. You built empires to shield the boy who still wonders if he's enough without them." He didn't sign it. Some letters are more powerful unsigned. The next day, he walked to the lake again, the one with the wooden bench and the plaque that read, "Sit here until the noise inside quiets." But this time, the bench wasn't empty. An old man sat there, sharpening a stick with a small pocket knife. He didn't speak when Elon arrived. Just patted the space beside him. Elon sat. After several minutes, the man said, "Still trying to figure out why you came?" Elon nodded slowly. The man smiled. "The smartest people usually take the longest to surrender." "To what?" "To the idea that you're already worthy. Even if you build nothing else ever again." Elon swallowed hard. "I'm not good at slowing down," he admitted. "No one is," the man said, "until their soul reminds them it's dying to breathe." They sat in silence after that. But it wasn't empty silence. It was the kind that healed something unnamed. And when Elon finally stood, the old man simply said, "Come back when you've stopped needing reasons." Elon stayed longer than he'd planned. He had told himself 2 days. Maybe 3. Enough to clear his head and humor the strange message that had lured him into the wilderness. But now it had been over a week. His watch had long since died. He stopped checking the date. The only clock he paid attention to was the one in the town bakery, and even that was more decoration than measurement. Time in this place didn't tick, it pulsed. Slowly. Patiently. One morning, as he returned from helping stack firewood behind the reading hall, Finley was waiting by the trail. She hadn't spoken to him since the first night, the thermos of tea, the folded papers she said he wasn't ready for. She had simply vanished into the town like a wisp of weather. Until now. "You've changed," she said without preamble. He paused. "How do you know?" She tilted her head. "Because you're finally walking slower." He laughed, surprised. "I used to measure my days by minutes. Every second counted. And now? Now I count birdsong. Finley smiled. Then it's time. For what? She pulled something from her coat pocket, a key, iron and old, tied to a string. There's one more place you need to go. But only when you're ready to stop searching. He took it without asking why. Later that day, guided only by instinct and memory, Elon wandered to the edge of the forest where the land dipped sharply down into a thicket of moss and cedar. There, buried beneath tree roots, he found it, a wooden hatch, so worn it blended with the ground. The key fit perfectly. Inside was not a room, but a space carved out of earth and silence. Candles lined the walls. A single wooden chair sat in the middle. And on a pedestal, a dusty mirror. He sat. And for the first time in years, he looked at his own reflection not as the world saw him, but as he actually was. Not Elon Musk, the innovator. Not the billionaire. Not the provocateur or the visionary or the headline. Just a man. A man who had once drawn rockets in a school notebook. A man who had once cried quietly after his father told him kindness was weakness. A man who had built everything except a place to rest. In that moment, he didn't cry. He didn't smile. He just breathed and let the weight of his own humanity fill the room like sacred air. The next few days blurred in gentle rhythm. He started helping Kiva in the workshop more regularly, not because she needed him, but because he wanted to be useful without expectation. He taught a boy how to fix a shorted circuit on a handheld radio, and in return, the boy taught him how to skip stones across the lake with 3 consecutive bounces. He repaired the roof of the cafe after a windstorm. No drones. No permits. Just wood, hammer, nails, and hands that remembered how to care. He helped an old woman name the flowers in her garden. She didn't know who he was. She only called him the quiet one. He liked that. One night, while placing a lantern on the porch of the reading hall, Elon noticed something scrawled in chalk beneath the bench where he first sat. It read, "We don't ask what you do. We ask who you're becoming." On the 12th day, he returned to the cabin to find the leather-bound journal open on the table. Only this time, a word had been added to the page, one he hadn't written. Stillness. He stared at it for a long time. It wasn't a command. It wasn't a lesson. It was a gift. One the world never gave him because he never let it. He flipped to the back of the journal and found something else. A photograph. It was old with grainy, black and white. A boy, maybe 9 or 10, standing beside a homemade telescope. The stars above were barely visible, but his face glowed with something unmistakable, wonder. Elon touched the photo like it might dissolve. He remembered that moment. Not the telescope. Not the night. The feeling. Back when curiosity didn't need ROI. When success wasn't measurable. When dreaming was enough. And in that memory, he found something unexpected. Forgiveness. Not for the world. For himself. At sunrise, Finley waited for him at the same place they'd first spoken. He held the folded paper she had given him days ago, untouched since. "May I read it now?" he asked. She nodded. "It was always your choice." He opened it carefully. There was no speech. No answer. No dramatic twist. Just one sentence, written in looping, gentle ink. "The thing you're missing isn't out there. It's the space you never gave yourself to be here." He looked up, the morning light catching the edges of his eyes. "What do I do with this?" he whispered. Finley smiled. "You live it." The morning he left, the village didn't stop him. No farewell banners. No dramatic music. No one crying at the edge of the trail. Only Finley waiting by the road, holding a small paper bag and a thermos of that same mint tea she always brought. "This isn't goodbye," she said simply. "It's carry on." He smiled. "For the road?" "For the soul," she replied. Then she added, "And yes, there's banana bread in there too." They stood in silence for a few moments, the cool breeze brushing against their jackets. "You know," Elon said softly, "I came here because of a sentence. Just a few words." "You stayed," Finley corrected, "because something inside you finally spoke back." He looked out at the trees one last time. The same trees that had watched him arrive hollow, and now watched him leave, still uncertain, but full. Not of answers. Of presence. The world hadn't changed while he was gone. The city still roared. The headlines still churned. The pings and buzzes returned like a familiar chorus the second he crossed into signal territory. His team had been looking for him. Some news outlets speculated he was secretly prototyping on a Mars simulator. They were all wrong. But for once, he didn't need to correct them. He walked into his own house like it was a place he had borrowed from a stranger. The mansion was still pristine. Still smart. Still waiting to serve. "Welcome home, Mr. Musk," the AI said. But Elon didn't respond. He walked past the sleek counters and the untouched theater. Past the trophy wall and the automated kitchen. Into the library. He pulled out the old drawing, the one he had made as a boy, tucked behind a photo frame. A planet, a rocket, and a stick figure waving from the stars. He added something new to it. Another figure, smaller, beside the first one, sitting on a bench, looking up at the same sky. Not building. Not launching. Just being. That night, he reopened the leather journal. It now held 5 words, each appearing like echoes of the place he had left behind. Connection. Humility. Stillness. Presence. Time. He stared at the last one the longest. Not time measured by clocks. But time to notice. Time to listen. Time to yield. Time to let someone laugh without rushing them. Time to hold space for someone else's silence without filling it. Time to be human. For the first time, he realized maybe humanity wasn't something to be outgrown. Maybe it was something to return to. Weeks passed. Then one morning, while walking through a coastal trail near San Francisco, Elon saw something that stopped him in his tracks. A boy. Holding a kite. The wind caught it and lifted it awkwardly before it tumbled to the ground. The boy sighed and picked it up, ready to try again. Elon knelt beside him. "You ever try letting it go just a little slower?" he said gently. The boy looked at him, puzzled. "You mean, don't fight the wind?" Elon smiled. "Exactly." They ran together. The kite soared. The boy laughed. And in that laughter, Elon found a moment that wasn't about building futures, but feeling them. At night, Elon sat by the window, a cup of tea warming his hands, the leather-bound journal open in his lap. The house around him was still. Not silent like a vacuum, but calm, like a held breath finally exhaled. He stared at the blank page for a long while before writing. "I used to think the future was about what we could build. Now I think it's about what we can remember. That presence matters more than progress. That a day with no output can still be the most meaningful. That you can be brilliant and still be broken, and that healing begins in stillness. That what makes us most human is not what we invent, but how we connect." He paused, took a slow sip of tea, and then, almost as if whispering it to himself through ink, added one last line beneath the others. "Some things aren't meant to be built. They're meant to be lived." If this story stirred something in you, some quiet echo, some long-forgotten truth, then maybe it's not just Elon's story anymore. Maybe it's yours, too. And maybe now is your time to begin remembering what truly matters. For that journey, 2 books may gently guide you back to yourself. The Second Mountain by David Brooks, a profound reflection on the shift from success to significance, from climbing the first mountain of achievement to ascending the second mountain of meaning, service, and deeper joy. Wintering, The Power of Rest and Retreat in Difficult Times by Catherine May, a tender, beautifully written reminder that stepping back, slowing down, and embracing life's quieter seasons is not a detour from growth. It is growth. And if you've ever felt like you've been running too fast, chasing too many things, carrying too many expectations, pause. Just for a moment. Not forever, but long enough to remember who you were before the noise began. Turn off your screen for 10 minutes today. Write a letter to the child you used to be. Take a walk without a goal, without a destination. And maybe open one of those books. Because what truly matters in this life isn't built. It's felt. And remembered. By you.